Bowling with the Theft.
I encourage you to get fast.
Your bowling stories.
All things the game of bowling.
Every week.
Helping bowlers.
The hand collapses down.
Live.
And I'm going to try to bowl the best I can.
2,000 subscribers. 2,000 subscribers.
I want to challenge Chad Nelson.
Tom Corbett.
Jason Belmonte.
Let's do this. This is Bowling with the Pfaff.
Indeed, everybody, let's do this. Another episode of Bowling with the Pfaff coming at you the day after Labor Day. Hope you had a great holiday weekend and are ready to talk bowling once again right here on the channel, where we discuss your bowling story live as we do each and every week right here. And so glad to have those of you who are tuned in live tuned in. Nico in already, says hi. Hi, Nico. If you're watching live like him, check out the live chat, which is up and running right now. If you're watching on replay, you can leave a comment. I do see them all, and I will try and get back to all of them just as soon as I can. So we had some PBA action over the weekend, and Jesper Svensson said that his American friends are tough to beat in the States, but that Olympia Bowling in Helsingborg, Sweden is his house. He told the PBA that after he put up back-to-back 257s in the semifinal and championship match to take the Lucky Larson Masters in Sweden over the weekend. Claimed his 12th PBA title on Sunday. Svensson also has won a 13th, but he was a non-member at the time. Now, the Lucky Larson is the final title event of the 2024 season. There was kind of a break there in between some of those events, which is why it seems like it's been a while. But here are the most recent PBA Tour champions. You've got David Boog Kroll taking the PBA Tour finals, Danielle McEwen, Anthony Simonson taking the PBA and PWBA striking against breast cancer mixed doubles, known as the Lucy, Brianna Clemmer, Francois Lavoie, and Tom Hess taking the inaugural Jonesboro Trios event, and the aforementioned Svensson taking the Lucky Larson title. The tour does wrap up in Portland, Maine with the PBA Elite League Finals, September 14th through the 17th. That also includes a taping of the PBA LBC National Championships Clash. Always an exciting event, or at least the first one was. This will be the second, and looking forward to see who comes away with the win in that. And now, a word from our sponsor.
Handmade salsa is great, but it's such a hassle. Cutting yourself, the constant waiting, burning yourself. Oh, look at that mess. Raise your snack standards. Chip Magnet Salsa.
Yeah, you don't need to do that to yourself. Go out and get a jar of Chip Magnet. It's an incredible product. I always have at least a jar or two in my house. I usually go with one of these two, either the Wildly Delicious or the Mango Habanero. It is based in Eau Claire, Wisconsin, distributing to stores in more than 38 states and Canada. If you're in Knoxville or Maryville, Tennessee, you can check out your local Food City store to get your fix, or go online. ChipMagnetSalsa.com is the place. If you purchase $30 or more in product and enter the promo code BWTF2024 at checkout, you'll get 25% off your purchase, and there is no limit from our good friends at Chip Magnet Salsa. Chip Magnet, raise your snack standards. And as always, thank you so much to Chip Magnet for supporting local bowling and Bowling with the Pfaff. Well, our guest tonight does not care for Doc Sullivan. Not one bit. What he does like is bowling, internet live streaming, and podcasting. Starting 3 summers ago, Rob Francois of Middle Settlement, Tennessee, invited all of us to join him, a masked man they call Dr. Ocho, and the son of USBC and PBA Hall of Famer Johnny Petraglia, for a journey that has really been going strong ever since and gaining momentum more recently, of course. You can find Straight Up 5 with Johnny Petraglia Jr. On the corresponding YouTube channel. You can see it there at the bottom of your screen. I'll also pop it up in the live chat. They also broadcast to Facebook, where they have a group. They have a presence on X or Twitter, if you like, and all the usual podcasting platforms. Well, Rad Rob is going to make our show just a little bit more rad than usual and he is here joining us live. Rob, welcome to Bowling with the Fef.
Fef, thanks for having me on, brother. I've been watching your show for quite some time, and you're also pretty standard in our chat as well. So thanks for having me on.
Yeah, you've got, I mean, there's all sorts of personalities in the chat rooms of these different shows. And the beauty of it is, if you can't catch one of us live, they're on YouTube for as long as YouTube is a thing. So it's really easy to kind of get a variety and kind of go through the different shows, be it Beef and Barnsey, your show, Sweep the Rack, whatever. So it's really kind of, neat to have that on demand. Now, I've got to ask right off the bat, because for some reason I'm not familiar, and I'm like bracing myself. This is a dumb question. Who is Doc Sullivan?
Doc Sullivan is, I mean, I don't even know who he is personally. I had posted that we were doing a show with John Mazza, PBA legend.
Yeah.
And Doc Sullivan just happened to comment on the post saying, "Really, PBA legend?" ? And from then on, we've just kind of lit him up at the end of every show.
Gotcha.
Especially PBA 50-star player of the year last year, Troy Lint. He likes to always say F Doc Sullivan in the chat at the end of our show. So we have a rowdy bunch in our chat, but we love all of them. I saw Nico here earlier. He's always in our chat, and he's very prominent in Sweep the Rack as well. But yeah, maybe I should unblock Doc Sullivan just to see if he ever wants to come on the show.
There you go. Yeah. No, I really felt, my first instinct was, oh my gosh, is that the guy that played on the Tonight Show? But that's Doc Severinsen.
That's Doc Severinsen, yeah.
So
well, you're really dating yourself and myself as well.
I know it's, when you're a middle-aged man, you can't get away from that. But
true story.
Yeah, I'm just glad it wasn't somebody, wildly famous that I should have known. And just
just a random jerk.
Yeah. All right. So 128 episodes in the rear view. Tell us about, how much you guys have accomplished in this thing. And if you feel like, you've accomplished enough to justify all the work that goes into it, because, doing this, I can tell you, these shows don't just come together like that. There's a lot of prep that goes into it too.
That's very true. It's kind of funny how it all started. So one of my co-hosts, Dr. Ocho, who likes to hide his identity behind a wrestling mask, which kind of makes our show even more unique because we may be the only bowling podcast with a luchador on our show.
Mm-hmm.
But he and I had done one of my other podcasts, which was RTW Main Event, which was a wrestling show, which turned into kind of a hodgepodge comedy show, and it just kind of got out of control. And we just tried to be as ridiculous as we could and try to make each other laugh. But he had mentioned that he bowled in a league at Howell Lanes. I'm like, oh, no kidding. I grew up bowling as well. And he mentioned that he was friends with Johnny Petraglia and his son, Johnny Jr. I was like, wow, that's really cool. Excuse me. I have a cold and I have a cough drop in. So if my voice comes out in there, then I'm sorry.
Oh,
but anyway, he introduced Johnny and I, and we talked for a while and said, why don't you come on our show first for a chance? And, we'll talk some bowling. He was a wrestling fan as well. And, we'll kind of see how it goes.
Yeah.
Talked for about 2 hours, had a great show. And, a few weeks later, just kind of kicked around the idea of, hey, why don't we do our own podcast? So we got together, we came up with a name, Straight Up Five. And, where the show started, and I'm sure you've had this issue as well, is I'm pretty sure your show is vastly different now than it was when you first started, just by the way it evolves and all that, right?
For sure.
So we started with segments like Johnny's Pro Shop, Ask Johnny Any Questions. We had people write in. We talked about news of the week. We had a segment called The Good, Bad, and the Ugly. And through time, it just kind of evolved. And we initially just did live to tape, only on audio podcast. And we decided, well, Johnny's got a pretty good Facebook presence. Why don't we just try live streaming through his Facebook page? And that's what we did. And it really kind of, it took about 7 or 8 months to kind of pick up. And eventually we started streaming to YouTube and Facebook, as you see our YouTube channel there.
Yeah.
And really, being the son of a legend like Johnny Jr. is, never use his name to get guests. Other than saying, this is the show that I host. Would you want to come on? But I never asked him to call anybody or call in any favors or ask people to be on the show. I've done the legwork myself and gotten pretty much all the guests that we've had on our show. So that's how it got started. And between it's probably been about 3 years now or close to it.
Yeah.
Never thought we'd be able to gain that much ground as we have, probably in the last year or so. And it's really special. I've gotten to talk to a lot of people that I grew up with watching on TV, as well as current stars. And I couldn't ask for anything more. We're just gaining word of mouth. I mean, we're a small podcast. We have had lots of great guests on, whether past or present, and just kind of do it naturally. Just let it grow organically.
Yeah, your past guest list reads like a who's who of bowling. And I can remember the first time I listened to the show. I was on a drive, on location. I do some video production for my day job, and I had to shoot an hour away, and I popped it on because I just happened to notice it during a search of podcasts. And like you said, it was in segments. I think you were talking about Sean Rash hooking the ball at spares or something like that.
Yep.
But through that evolution, through that, that experience, it's really gone from, okay, this is Johnny, he's the expert, to we have a bunch of characters here, and this is going to be fun, and it's going to be a little edgy. And, this is who we are, look out. And I think you guys really kind of gel well that way. I mean, does it feel like that when you're kind of in the moment?
Yes. Thankfully, we have very, very good chemistry together, all three of us. And we're kind of in a rhythm now, kind of like in the pocket, pun intended, I guess, to where we can just feed off each other. Even if we don't have a guest or that much to talk about, we can just jive, for an hour and a half sometimes, and just kind of go with it. And, conversations will come up organically. Our chat's pretty active. They'll ask questions, even if we don't have any particular format. I'm blessed to have two guys that really kind of know where I'm going to be, and I know where they're going to be. And we've done a really good job of building that chemistry. And to have the level of guests that we've had it's been pretty awesome. It's funny. I never thought I would get to talk to somebody like Jason Belmonte, because obviously he's like the biggest name in the world. Okay. So I was going to buy a cameo for Johnny Jr. for his birthday to congratulate him on 100 episodes of our show. And Belmo actually messaged Johnny and says, "Hey, I got this cameo request from your boy Rad Rob, and I can't charge you for that. I'll do it for free." And then during the cameo, he said, "What's the guy got to do to get on your show? Like, you had Robert Smith on. Now you're going to have me on at 101. You should have me on at 101." And we did. So that was very unexpected. And he gave us 2.5 hours of his time and was very open and very candid about a lot. And it was just, I go back and watch it. I'm kind of in shock. Like, did I really just sit through that? Like, this is like what many people consider to be the GOAT, all haters aside. But aside from that, talking to Danny Wiseman or John Mazza, Bob Learn, Ryan Schaefer, a lot of guys I grew up watching on ABC growing up. Like, it's been really cool. And to speak with younger people like Nate and Elise from YouTube, and who are pros in their own right, it's really been a cool gig. And what started out as kind of just a BS hobby thing that we're going to do, we never expected it really to grow. Now we just started a website, we got merchandise, so it's man, we're cooking, we're in a good groove right now, and people seem to have a lot of fun watching it.
Yeah, it's really cool, and it's certainly inspiring for those of us who do shows like this. So kudos to all three of you on on what you're doing, and please keep at it, because like you said, we like watching and listening.
Appreciate that.
A lot of the time when you're talking to a guest or even each other, you bring up your history about the former Bradley Bowl in Windsor Locks, Connecticut, which is now called Spare Time. Are you originally from that area?
Yes. Born and raised in Connecticut. Lived there until about 2010, when my wife, who I initially met, which is funny, we're well before Match.com and all that. I met my wife on AOL in an Atlanta Braves chat room because I was actually a low-key Braves fan, even though I was also a Red Sox fan.
Okay.
Happened to strike up a conversation, talked over the phone for a few months, went and saw each other, eventually got married in 2005. She moved up to Connecticut with me. Long story short, she wanted to be closer to her family, so we left for Middle Tennessee, which is where we are right now, in 2010. But yes, I grew up a bowling rat, hanging out at Bradley Bowl in Windsor Locks. My mom worked there at the front desk. So it's funny how much bowling has impacted me, not only as a kid, but now all these years later. Like, it's almost like it came full circle, and I'm able to have a podcast, which I never would have thought 30, 40 years, even 20 years ago,
Sure.
that I could get online and speak with guys that I've idolized growing up.
Yeah.
But yeah, I started bowling when I was 6. I went through the junior leagues, had some success at JBT, bowled some other leagues here and there, never really got to the next level. I was probably a 205, 210 average, which obviously isn't that bad, but I never really for all the hard work I put into it, never got to that next level. But I've been around a bowling alley my entire life, and it's sad to see what Bradley has become now, because for many, many years they hosted the PBA Tour, and was a regular stop. And now it's one of those entertainment centers where they have 3 VIP lanes, I believe, and the rest of it's like laser tag and arcades and all that. It's really sad to see one of the great bowling venues go by the wayside.
When you were first getting into it, I mean, you said your mom worked there.
Yeah.
Was she the main influence? Was it somebody else or something else?
She was pretty much the main influence. I mean, both of them bowled in Friday night leagues.
Okay.
So it was always there, like even before my mom worked there. So I'd always go watch them bowl. But like I said, getting in it very early at 6 years old, bowling youth leagues, I've pretty much been around, bowling my entire life. So yeah, I would say both my parents were a big influence into me getting into the game. And it's funny, once my parents divorced, my mom actually married somebody else that had worked there at Bradley. So that still continues to impact me all these years later, which is pretty neat.
Yeah. Was there a time when you realized, oh my gosh, this is not just the local bowling center, but like you said, this is a hotbed of activity on the PBA Tour. They come here every year. I got to be a part of that. I mean, do you remember the first time you saw a national tour event in person?
I do. I was probably about, I want to say maybe 8 or 9 years old, and I had met Nelson Burton Jr. During the pro-am. I got to bowl with him. I met Pete McCordick, who threw a 300 on TV.
Yeah.
Amaletto was my hero growing up. I got to meet him. Mats Carlson was another really, really nice guy. I met a lot of the really, great bowlers on that tour. And what's funny is because my mom actually, when she worked there, they put me to work. So they put me back in the boiler room and used me as youth slave labor, I guess. And I was cleaning the plastic telescores because back then they didn't have automated scoring machines.
Right.
Everything was written down on these long plastic sheets, and I would have to take acetone and clean them all, and spray it off and clean them all, and get them back there so I could reuse them for the next squad. So it was pretty cool to be part of that process. I mean, I didn't think of anything about it then, but now thinking about it, like that was kind of cool. I actually kept the machine rolling. And then later, as I got older, I would help unload the PBA truck when it came in, and they'd give us a free bowling ball for helping out. And they actually gave me a teal Rhino Pro from Ricky Ward. Wow. And I still have that ball. I still actually use it. Johnny always gives me crap about my equipment. I still have my original forest green Quantum and my teal Rhino Pro, along with a horrible Swamp Monster. But I don't bowl as much as I used to. I am looking to get back into it. But seeing the PBA Tour come in, being able to help put up the bleachers for the audience to sit at, Just seeing all the process. I got to meet Chris Schenkel, who is a hell of a guy. I mean, one of the nicest guys. Chain smoked like a son of a gun, but really was a down to earth guy. And I never had a bad experience. When it came to meeting bowlers. Pete Couture was our resident pro, so he was always there at Bradley. We had Nebas there all the time. We had really, really competitive, scratch leagues. Some of the highest scores in the state came out of Bradley Bowl and Vernon Bowl, which was their sister location. So yeah, it was a really unique time growing up when the PBA Tour was hot and on ABC.
Yeah. Yeah. When things started to change, when ABC dropped the tour, when they stopped coming there, I mean, was that a time in your life when you were still around and had to kind of experience that, or had you already moved away?
So by then we're looking at what, 95, 96, I think, somewhere around there.
I think 96, 97.
96, 97. Okay. Yeah. I'm getting old. My years it's hard to keep track. So at that point would have made me 20, 21. Yeah. I was pretty much moved on from that. I don't even really know if I was bowling any leagues. Yeah, no, I don't really think I was involved that much. I was pretty much just kind of figuring out life, I guess.
Yeah, sure.
As somebody who's getting ready to be legal to drink alcohol.
That's always a big moment in any
right. You're always looking forward to like a few milestones that you have after that.
Yeah, for sure. So you mentioned kind of the show being a way for this to get full circle, because you had been away from the sport for a while. What made you, go away from it? I'll say.
I mean, obviously life happens, things come up and other things get in the way. And, in my 20s, I pretty much just hung out with my friends, played video games, worked every day. I don't really know exactly why I stopped bowling, but I did get back into it in my late 20s, early 30s, and it was like I never left. I picked back up, throwing about 205, 210 average, just having fun. I think, honestly, now that I think about it, being a very competitive person, which I am, I hate losing at anything. I mean, just literally anything. The fact that I probably never got to that next level to where I was a 225, 230, 240 average. And this is well before the house shot. This is before, the very real strong, equipment and the house shot. But I still don't use it as an excuse because I still have plenty of years of experience to where I should have progressed to that next level. And yeah, maybe in the back of my mind, that's kind of what turned me off towards the sport. But, I did get back into it. And then I moved to Tennessee and kind of had to find my niche here and see where I fit in. And there's only really one actual, decent bowling center that's not one of those entertainment deals, which is in Smyrna, Tennessee, which hosts the WPBA. The PBA 50 is coming there in September. So, yeah, I really just haven't got back up, into it. And having a kid who's now 6, it just, life happens, right? You just don't really have time for it. But I'm looking to get back into shape, and that's one big thing is just being completely out of shape and gassed out, even when I tried to bowl for fun. But it's definitely something I like to get back into.
Yeah. Yeah. Smyrna also a frequent host site of the collegiate sectionals. So a lot of high level talent going through there, which is awesome to see that it's so close, or at least relatively speaking to where you're at.
It's about 20 minutes away from me.
Okay. So there you go. Nico says the PBA stopped going to Windsor Locks, Connecticut in 2004. With that mean the last year?
That may have been the last year that they went there. Yeah,
it could be. Yeah.
That's possible. I mean, it's like, again, when I got in my 20s, I even just stopped watching bowling on TV. So
sure,
Nico's pretty smart. He's kind of our resident statistician. So
yeah,
if he says 2004 was then I'd have to believe him.
Yep. he's especially the PWBA. He knows that like the back of his hand.
He does.
BSJ83 says, "Are we going to get a Love That Chicken from Popeyes sound effect?"
Here we go. Always have that loaded up in my Roadcaster. Yeah, there you go.
There it is. Yeah. So what's the deal with that? Is it just?
It's just a running joke. Like honestly, the funny thing is, I'm probably gonna get heat for this too, but I don't even eat there. Honestly, don't. I just
okay.
It's a running gag that Ocho and I have had for a while, and it's somehow just carried on over the years and spilled into our bowling show, and now it's kind of a thing. I even bought a Popeyes hat from somebody that used to work there, just as a goof. I actually prefer KFC, but hey, don't tell anybody.
I love when we get the good stuff like that, the secrets. So, all right. So you kind of mentioned how you started the show and all that stuff. You met the guys, you knew you wanted to do it. And you, if I'm not mistaken, you were already doing other shows. So it wasn't a matter of getting the gear, the tech together, right? You had that. What did it take to start up Straight Up 5?
Honestly, just getting one of my friends to create the logo. And then I got on Fiverr, which is a great marketplace for people that do YouTube intros and voiceovers and a plethora of things that they're all contracted by. So I've had a guy that I've used on there for the last, God, I think I've been doing this for maybe 6 years now. That is like the voice of my show that does all the intros and outros. So just did that, and then kind of figure out what we're gonna do. What we want to do. Like we said, it was initially we had commercial breaks and different formats and stuff like that, trying to make it like a traditional sports themed show. But yeah, I mean, it really, having the knowledge that I had from doing several other podcasts. I had my own wrestling show. I had a political show with the former WWE referee who had turned politician, Drake Wirtz. I had a couple of different other wrestling themed shows. Yeah, at one point I probably was doing about 6 shows, and eventually my wife's like, "You got to calm it down a little bit." So I kind of lightened my load and stopped some of the shows that weren't drawing as well. And then really the bowling show Straight Up 5 was the one that took off. Out of all the projects that I had working with different celebrities and personalities, I never ever would have thought, because bowling is a niche audience, that it would ever take off the way it did. And it's just, I guess, just a credit to how well we work together, and obviously I try to put as much professionalism into it as I can. Like I said, with the professional intros and outros, I'll make highlight reels for the pros that we have on, which they always seem to get a kick out of. So I try to make it as, and you have great production value as well. I got to give you credit for that. It really, because not a lot of shows do, right? A lot of shows just kind of half-assed, even with pretty big people, in different podcasts around the world. So I try to put as much into it as I can to make it seem like we're legit.
Yeah. You've got this growing community on the bowling show that, like you said, is always in the chat. They've got personality. How does this bowling community compare to the wrestling community or the political community that you had been, broadcasting to in these other shows? Obviously, the bowling one you said is bigger, but are the personalities as diverse? Is there just a different feel?
So I think one major benefit that our community has is their love for Johnny Jr.
Yeah.
And how there are a lot of his friends and a lot of people from the industry and a lot of pros that respect him. Because if you go to some of the chats or some of the Facebook groups, there's some not nice people in the bowling world. I always, we have a segment called Jackass of the Week, or sorry, Imbecile of the Week. It should be called Jackass of the Week, but it's the Imbecile of the Week, where I'll usually go to the Bowling Science Forum on Facebook because it always never fails to provide some kind of entertaining quotes from people.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, look, people in general are never going to get along, whether it's bowling or wrestling or politics or fast food, which is funny because I'm actually starting a new show called Why We Can't Have Nice Things, And I'm going to dive into a lot of those idiotic threads that you'll see, whether it's food reviews or Amazon reviews or Facebook groups. So anyway, unintentionally didn't mean to bring that up, but
No, that's cool.
it's it should be fun. But yeah, no, our and look, as a whole, like out of any other, let's just compare it to other sports. I do think that bowling fans in general are more laid back and more chill and more, I would say not as rude as other sports, because a lot of other sports, I mean, you got guys that are rooting for their team, like, whether the football team, baseball team, hockey team, well, they've been invested for 30 years.
Yes,
A lot of times with bowling or even, stock car racing, your favorites are going to retire, right? So I mean, and usually you're rooting for individuals, and you don't seem to have that tribalism when it comes to bowling and bowling fans. So I would say the bowling community in general is a lot more accepting. But we do have a fantastic group that watches. We'll even have several pros like Troy Linton will pop in and out, or Nate Garcia, or Patrick Dabrowski. Walter Ray's wife, Fancy, frequents our chat, so it's kind of cool to see them pop in every now and then.
Yeah. BSJ83 wants to know if either of us have attempted to reach out to PDW to get him on our shows. That's a good question. I feel like I have, but don't quote me on that, because, and I'm sure you can appreciate this, I've reached out to a lot of people. Yeah, if I have, it was a long time ago.
Yeah, I think I may have messaged him on Facebook and he never read it, which I'll get that a lot. I mean, there are a lot of people that won't answer messages, or have a team that works for them that says, yeah, we'll get back to you. But I do think I reached out to PDW, and Johnny's been very close with them over the years. I think Johnny may have asked him at some point. He's like, yeah, we'll get there at one point, and just never revisited. But yeah, I mean, it's, even when I did my wrestling show and I try to get wrestling guests on and stuff like that, I'd have guys that would big time me, or just didn't want to come on, or didn't want to even answer my messages. But yeah, you kind of get used to that. You got to kind of have a thick skin when it comes to that. You can't always get the people that you want, but when you do, it's a cool thing.
Yeah, it makes it worth the effort for sure. Speaking of your folks in the chat, I was able to get a hold of a couple of them. One of them, Chuck Ritchie Jr., has a little experience in this kind of thing. Yes. I asked him why he likes the show so much, and he says the show keeps it real. He says Rob sets Johnny and Ocho up, and they hit it out of the park. Is that on purpose? I mean, do you kind of go in with the mindset of, okay, I'm going to tee them up, and then they, drive me home?
I don't know if it's intentional or unintentional, but it obviously does work out that way. And especially when we have some guests on the show, that's kind of my niche, interviewing people. That's always been my strong point. For whatever reason, I've just always had a knack for asking the right questions. But yeah, I do kind of tee it up for them. And as as a host, we're the ones that are steering the ship, right? We're in charge. We're watching the chat. We're watching the time. We're trying to think of how to keep the show moving so you don't have any dead air. Yeah, I mean, I put them in a position to where they're best suited. I kind of try to play to their strengths, and I know what their weaknesses are, and I try to make them look as good as they possibly can. So yeah, there are a lot of times where I may tee it up, because I know they're just gonna take it and run with it.
Yeah, for sure. Like I said, personality really drives what you guys do, despite the fact that you've been kind of guest driven for the recent past. Another one, Elise Bolton, told me he's awesome. You can tell he loves bowling and growing the sport. And, I'm sure you understand this. You can't fake this. You have to be yourself.
Yeah.
And that tells me that what she says is, in your heart of hearts. Is that something that you feel like you were good at from the start, or is that something you had to kind of get comfortable in your own skin with?
That's a very good question, and that's really nice of Elise to say. I got to meet her and her husband Nate at the PWBA 50, the PWBA event in Smyrna this year. So they're really, really cool people. But so if you ask my mom, she would tell you that she always knew that I would be doing something like this. Even as a kid, growing up in the 80s, I'd have a little portable tape recorder that I'd keep around. And I was a huge wrestling fan. And I'd always pretend to be like Mean Gene and do my own interviews and stuff like that, and do impersonations of other wrestlers. So I've always kind of had a knack for being able to speak. Even my teachers in as early as kindergarten would say, "Kid's a great student, but he really talks way too much. Like, you got to get him to shut up. Like, he just won't shut up in the classroom." I'm paraphrasing,
Sure.
but yeah, no, I'd always be the one that was always blah 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 blah. So that initially there makes me a great candidate for being a podcast host eventually.
Yeah.
But I was doing it well before podcasting was a thing, and I initially I wanted to be on the radio. And living in Connecticut, they had a great school, Connecticut School of Broadcasting. Easy for me to say. And I was going to sign up for that, and again, life just kind of got in the way, and I got kind of hammered down and got promoted to work and never had time for it. So yeah, when podcasting came out, I was like, wow, what is this? And looked into it, and here we are about 6-7 years later.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's always come natural to me. One of my friends just recently listened to my show, and he's like, "Man, how do you do that? Like, I don't understand how you look into a webcam and look at people on the screen and talk to them. Like, I couldn't do it." And I'm like, "Well, you're a public speaker. Like, I don't understand how you do that. Personally, I can't get in front of a crowd and talk. I'd be petrified."
Sure.
Or for whatever reason, sitting here in my chair talking to people on the internet across the world is, comes pretty natural.
Yeah. It's like anything. Takes practice, right?
True.
And when you've got, someone like this
Oh boy.
right at your side, Ocho, who's got zero weaknesses and kind of gets you there with he just can't pronounce the word thank.
I can't. I don't know why.
I got to tell you, having Ocho commenting in my live chat, this is like one of the signature moments.
It really is.
Show. He's
and he likes to troll me, even though he's one of my good friends. He always likes to push my buttons. But yeah, thanks for that, Ocho. I appreciate it.
No, great to have you on, Mr. Doctor, sir. I gotta ask with that keeping it real thing.
Sure.
You've made mention of your political leanings on the
Okay.
show and essentially said that all three of you are Trump supporters. That's one of the great things about America. You can go out and say that. Nobody can stop you. It's part of the First Amendment, and it's fantastic. My question is, do you ever worry about viewers, listeners, potential viewers or potential listeners saying, that kind of turns me off because I don't agree, and then they don't come and watch your show?
So you would like to think that people aren't in high school anymore and kind of get over that BS, right? And kind of realize that other people have different opinions and views than they do, and we can kind of leave that aside. And if you enjoy the show, you enjoy the show. But I actually had one of our viewers message me privately and say, "Hey man, I know you had your Trump hat on your show, and as a businessman myself, it's not really a good idea to kind of have that in case you turn people off." And it's not something I initially thought about, but yeah, you're right. I guess in this day and age, in this climate that we're in, you kind of have to. I don't want to say appease certain people, but when it comes to business, try to leave some of your personal views aside. But again, our show is so real and raw and unfettered, as I like to say. That a lot of us just don't give a shit. Sorry, Ocho is correcting us. He's a no one supporter.
Oh, he's a no one supporter.
Ocho's kind of anti-government. He's
Adam
he's
Kokesh for president of all shows.
he's kind of a weird guy. Obviously, since he wears a wrestling mask on the show, but
Right.
yeah, I mean, I don't. Where do you stand on that? Would you agree that you shouldn't bring that into your business?
I think that's for everybody to decide for themselves.
Right.
Now, I have history in local television. So, when I got into that, it's like you cannot, lean one way or the other in what we do in public. You can vote. It's your right to vote,
Right.
but that's just not, it's not what we do. We are unbiased. We present both sides, let the viewers make up their own minds. What ends up happening is Republicans say you're too far left, Democrats say you're too far right, and then you're doing your job because you're right in the middle.
Right.
And I've kind of taken that into life after television too. So I'm probably the prime example of someone who just doesn't really, outwardly support any candidate.
Yeah.
I just do this bowling show and, kind of do my own thing. But I don't think there's a right or wrong. I mean, who are we to say that one way is better than the other?
Right. Yeah, no, true. But obviously, it doesn't take much to offend people in this day and age. And unfortunately, that are some of the repercussions you may face when you do bring those personal beliefs onto your show. And it obviously affected one person that came out and messaged me, but I won't name names. There are plenty of PBA 50 stars that message me and send me political memes, let's just say.
Okay.
And they're very staunch Republicans. But out of fear of, again, disrupting their brand, they won't come out and publicly mention it. But it's kind of amusing to see. And there's others. I mean, we'll mention Walter Ray. Walter Ray is probably one of the most prominent Democrats on Facebook who likes to get into certain discussions, which is fine. He's from California, 2 degrees from Cal Poly. Probably the most accomplished bowler in the history of the world.
Yep.
And he's entitled to his views, and he happens to be open and honest about it. And probably at this point in his life, being in his 60s, or he doesn't care, which is fine. That's his prerogative.
Yeah.
But it is something that I took to heart, and I kind of keep that on the down low.
Okay, fair enough. Yeah, but like I said, it's America. You can tell me you don't like how I do it. That's fine. You can tell me you love how you do it. That's
Right.
fine too. We all have our opinions. They're like a-holes. Everybody has them.
Very true.
Good stuff. BSJ83 says, what's the story on Ocho and the mask?
Okay, so there's a running joke that I don't know who Ocho is, and I've never seen his face. And I think I'm pulling back the curtain a little bit too much tonight, but it's just look, it kind of goes back to the wrestling community.
Okay.
He, with another couple other friends that he met online, had a group called the Brothers Grappler, and they would just troll wrestling fans, just like unabolished, unedited, unfiltered, would just troll poor wrestling fans. As a good,
kind of like the same personality we see on the show.
Pretty much, yes,
Yeah.
Pretty much. Sarcastic, witty, snarky. Yeah, that's Dr. Ocho.
Yeah.
And deep down, I mean, when you get to know him, he's still a douchebag. But no. In fact, he's probably texting me right now. Okay. So he kind of carried that over to the podcast that we did initially, the wrestling podcast, and was the character. And I found out in real life that he was a chiropractor. So I just started calling him Dr. Ocho, and he took it and ran with it. And it just spilled over into our bowling show. And he just doesn't want to, he doesn't want his private life or, thrown out there. Doesn't want people to know who he is or who he looks like. And it just makes for more entertainment on the show, because the look on some of the pros' faces when we first have them on and they see this guy in a wrestling mask, like, what the hell did I just walk into? Like, what? 10 minutes, I'm out of here. I got to tell them somebody's calling me, but when they get to talk to him and we all get going, it's fun. They get it. They're in on it. And they play along with it, and it's pretty fun. But yeah, that's where Dr. Ocho came from. The Twitter world.
Okay. And I love this thing.
The guns. Yeah, he's always posing. Yeah.
Like,
guy hasn't worked out in 4 years. He hasn't worked out since COVID, and he still has 20-inch biceps. It's crazy.
It is, but that's fun stuff. Oh, he says he's even better looking than his biceps indicate.
You're such a jerk. He does have tremendous peaks. Let's just say that. I mean, he's a fairly handsome guy if you like that thing.
Yeah. Okay. Fair enough. So expanding on what Chuck said, he said that you guys book really good guests. You ask the hard hitting questions. Even with Belmo and Tom Clark, you didn't pull any punches. Is that something you go in thinking about, discussing? Okay, these are big names in this industry, in this sport, but we're going to treat them like any other interview.
So yeah, and that's my initial goal is to put somebody over, and that's a wrestling insider term, is to make them look good.
Yeah.
Try not to ask any questions that are purposely going to make them look bad, but at the same time, I don't want to just throw them softballs. I actually want to ask them questions that the average bowler, the average person, are thinking.
Yeah.
Especially when it came to Tom Clark. And he had no issues or any reservations answering some of those questions. And, because you're going to got a lot of guys on there, oh, man, that was just a puff piece. You just had Tom Clark on there, and you didn't ask him any hard questions, and you're just trying to make him look good. Well, one, I am trying to make them look good. But in Belmo's case, he was even more candid than I ever thought he would be. When I asked him, when it came to the PBA Tour losing their big deals, ABC, and losing all their sponsorships and kind of going through a strange period, I said, what do you think caused that? And he literally said, the older generation effed up. Literally just said they effed up. And he elaborated on it. And he was very, very open and candid with a lot of his answers. But he's also an ambassador for the sport. So you can't deny anything that Belmo's done, even if you don't like two-handed bowling. He's influenced more people, more young people to start bowling than probably anybody in the last 30 years.
Mm-hmm.
But anyway, going back to the initial question, I do try to walk the line of making them look good and not asking them anything that's going to make them look weak. But on the other hand, there's a lot of pressing issues that people want to know about, and since they're on the inside, I ask them. Either they answered or they don't. It's up to them.
Yeah, and it's a delicate balancing act. You want to have the good relationship with the guests, but you also want the good information. So yeah, it's like you said,
absolutely.
kind of a little of both. Ocho says 221 average also, in case you were wondering.
He's a house hack. It's the house shot at Howell Lanes in New Jersey.
I believe it's the red wiffle bat.
The big red wiffle bat. So real quick, if people don't know what that is, he equates the house shot to playing wiffle ball, not with the skinny yellow bat that we all used to, but the big red plastic wiffle bat that's like, this thick. And that's what the house shot is compared to the sports shot. And he's kind of right. There's a lot of bowlers now that bowl in the house shot that think they can compete with the guys on TV, right. And try to go out maybe to the ABC or the USBC Nationals and shit the bed, to use a particular term. But and that's kind of what the house shot does. It kind of makes people think that they're better than they are.
Right. Yeah. So where do you go from here? I mean, like you said, you've got the momentum, you've got the good chemistry with the guys, with the guests you're bringing on. Do you see this going as a primarily guest-driven thing into the future? Do you see changes being made? Is there an unmasking of Ocho at some point? I mean, what do you see for the future of this show?
Maybe if we kind of get some kind of a charity pledge or something, and raise some money for a particular cause, maybe he would think about undonning the mask, I guess, or unmasking. But we're just going to kind of keep it growing organically. We're not going to push it too far. I advertise everything myself, on all my socials. I pretty much control all that on a limited budget. I don't put a lot of money into it. I just like things to take their course. They're going to take their course and go whichever direction it's supposed to. But we are trying to be more active in the community, which is why we created the Facebook group over the last few months. and creating the website straightup5.com, and introducing merchandise and getting more designs put in there, and try to grow that way is it's a an extra source of income. Not that we need it, and we never started this trying to make any money. It was just a passion of ours. But it's kind of cool when opportunities do come up, like we had, Manscaped email me out of the blue and say, "Hey, we like your show. We want to try a run with you." So I mean, that's stuff that I never expected, but cool when stuff like that happens. So we're just gonna continue to put out great shows, and we didn't start off as a guest driven show, and I don't really think we are. We've just been blessed to have a lot of people want to come on our show. Like, it got to a point to where, some people message Johnny and be like, "I want to be on your show," which is really cool. Like, that's kind of how you're doing a good thing, when people in the community and in the profession, professional bowlers themselves, message you and say, "Hey man, I really dig your show. I'd love to come on and chat with you guys. You guys are awesome." Yeah. So that's probably the biggest compliment that we could get, is when people from the industry want to be on the show. So I mean, there's gonna be weeks where we're not gonna have people on the show, but when the opportunity arises, I would always love to have somebody on. Like I said, interviewing is probably the most fun I have doing it. And we've had a pretty good run lately with Jacob Buttriff a couple weeks ago, and Chris Barnes last week, and Nate and Lise are coming back on the show this week. So wherever it takes us, man, like I'm just happy to be along for the ride. I know that's cliche, but really I'm blessed. That's all I can say, is I'm certainly blessed to not only have great friends like Ocho and Johnny, but to make great friends. Like you and Chuck and Elise and a lot of the pros that we have on the show. I still, message every day, just kind of keep in contact with them. It's like I'm just a little kid watching bowling on TV, all grown up and having fun. Like that's the best part of it. We're just having a lot of fun.
Yeah, for sure. No, it life is weird like that. I mean,
it really is.
Ocho's judging a wet t-shirt contest as he's watching this. He says, "What can't I do? The winner of the wet tee gets to unmask Dr." See?
He's literally never serious. I've never had a serious talk with him.
Listen, Kiss lost the makeup. I mean, you can lose the mask for an album or two, right?
Don't even ask him about that. He's a huge Kiss fan.
Okay.
Yeah, it's probably a sore subject with that whole the whole 80s thing.
Okay.
I'm sure he'll chime in here in a second, but
they put it back on. I mean,
they did, and they made a lot of money.
Yeah.
And I remember them announcing their reunion tour, or getting back with the paint in I think it was 2000, right? It was like New Year's Eve 2000. They had a concert on live TV.
Yeah, it was somewhere around there.
And I think they went for 22 more years, something like that. Like, they had a bigger run the second time, or third, whichever time you want to call it, than they did initially with the face paint, and made a truckload of money.
Oh yeah, they did. Good stuff. Well, as Ocho thinks up his next witty response, let me get you out of here on this.
Let's go off the sheet. Challenge a bowler to appear on a future episode.
I would like to challenge Mil Madison.
I would say Diana Zavulova.
The better Russo, Lauren Russo.
We're looking for anyone who has a passion for the sport and a unique story to tell.
1996 dummy is how he responded to that.
I knew he would get back. See, I told you. Ocho remembers everything.
Okay. Well, Rad Rob, who would you like to challenge to be on a future episode of Bowling with the Fat?
I don't know if you've had her on, but I would challenge Liz Johnson to be on your show. I'm a huge fan of hers. Just watching, I actually got to watch her bowl this year in Smyrna. And seeing her compete with the guys this year also has been fun to watch. So yeah, that would be my pick.
Yeah,
she's tremendous.
She is, one of the best to ever do it on the women's side, or really any side, because she's won on the men's side too.
Yeah.
And you are not the first to challenge her. So we've had some conversation over Messenger. It just never really materialized. So this is a good way to jumpstart that again. Liz, if you happen to watch this and are interested in taking Rad Rob up on his challenge, you can find me on Facebook or email bowlingwiththefef@yahoo.com and we'll make it happen. This next Monday is our next show, and we're going live at Wagner's Lanes in Eau Claire, Wisconsin, talking with the reigning Wisconsin State Senior Doubles champions, Terry Halita and Mike Wurz. If Wurz's name sounds familiar, it's because his State Hall of Fame speech is on this channel. But that'll be live from Wagner's Lanes Monday, September 9th, 7 o'clock Central, as usual. Rad Rob, it has been a pleasure having you on, getting to know you a little bit. Plug tomorrow's show again. People need to see it. It's going to be good.
I appreciate that, and I appreciate you having me on. And some people are going to watch your show and like, who the hell is this guy? So hopefully, I was entertaining enough for people that are watching this show. And congrats on your success, by the way. You've got a great community and great following as well. And like I said, great production value. You're a fantastic host. And we do a lot to try to support the bowling community, whether it be this show. We're always promoting, Sweep the Rack or the house bowling, and just try to keep this one big crazy community together and help each other out, and help grow the sport and grow the audience. So I appreciate that. So Straight Up 5 with Johnny Petraglia Jr. You can follow us on subscribe to us on YouTube at Straight Up 5 Podcast, as you see down there on the screen. We're also on any podcast app if you don't want to watch YouTube and you want to listen to it on the way to work or whatever. Straight Up 5 can be found on all major podcast platforms. And tomorrow night, Wednesday night, September 4th, 8 p.m. Eastern, we're going to have Nate and Elise from YouTube. Nate, obviously, you've had Elise on here as well. Love those guys. They're super, super cool. They've been on a couple times already, and Nate recently retained his doubles title with Walter Ray Williams Jr. this past weekend. So I'll be looking forward to speaking to him about that. But tomorrow night, September 4th, 8 p.m. Eastern, Straight Up 5 on YouTube. And we appreciate all the support.
Yeah, go check it out. It's a great show. If you haven't, you're probably one of the first, one of the last, I should say, to not to see the show, but give it a watch, give it a like, a subscribe, all that good stuff. These guys are doing a great job with their bowling show as well. Everyone, thanks so much for watching. Always appreciated, and we will see you next time.
Thank you for watching Bowling with the Fef. Pound the like button and subscribe button. It's the easiest way to support the channel, and it's free. Bowling with the Fef is brought to you by Chip Magnet. Raise your snack standards. Email bowlingwiththefef@yahoo.com with questions or to appear on the show. You can also reach out on your favorite social media platform.